I'm very excited today to be interviewing Janma Bardi. And Janma has been a serial entrepreneur since she was 17. I guess that was even before you were a graduate student at MIT, creating more than 10 companies over the last 23 years, and involved in projects in technology, innovation, and catapulting Latin America into the modern world, and really the bridge between Latin America and the global entrepreneurial community. And I met Janma, and she invited me to be a keynote at her Volcano Summit in Guatemala, in Antigua, Guatemala. And that's when I really got very excited about the work that Janma is doing, because my experience at that summit was very special. First of all, she had an amazing array of leaders presenting at the summit. But more than just the leaders, and it was the community that I felt from that experience. It was the participants, all at a very high level, and how the whole program was organized. But really what struck me the most was how everything played out and how her staff was so present with all of the people present. It was like, Janma, you epitomized the way community should work, where people were caring about other people. And it really felt like in that 1 week, actually 4 days, you created a tremendous community. Welcome, leaders. In a world constantly evolving, true leaders need to come from a place of resilience, with vision, and wanting to embrace change, which is all around us. I'm Dr. Stephen Sideroff, and this is Quantum Leadership Podcast, where we look at the principles that connect the mind, body, spirit, and organizational success. So I want to welcome Janma. Thank you for being here in this interview.
Thank you, Stephen. It's amazing. I love your energy. Since I met you, for me, it was like having a great doctor, having a great conversation and very profound. So I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for your invitation to be. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, Janma. And, I've read a lot of the things that you've done and you've written, and it is in such alignment with the notion of quantum leadership. I'll just read a couple of statements that you've made that are just some of the key elements of what I'm talking about. And you said you are a true believer of the network effect. I love that. And then my purpose in life is to be part of projects that transform lives, communities, and societies. And in those comments, you really embrace the whole notion of good leadership and what we're working to achieve in quantum leadership. And another aspect of the work that you do, you're the founder of Volcano Capital, where your mission is to capitalize and exponentiate human connections, and our purpose is transforming societies through collaboration. We are the bridge where innovation and investment converge towards transformative opportunities in the Latin American entrepreneur landscape. And so with a track record of connecting visionary startup founders and high-value investors to create long-term relationships and high-return investments. And it brings together the humanistic aspect of all of us with good financial results as well, proving that we can have both. So again, welcome, Janma, and I would love you to start by kind of telling a little bit about your personal journey in business and leadership.
Super. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you for those remembering when you say those type of things, it resounds more, and it gets to the level to really concrete uh, for those miracles to happen, you know? Um, so a little bit about me. I started a few years ago. Now I'm 42 years. And as you were saying, I'm started when I was 17 years old. My family my parents got divorced. My father, after that, abandoned us. And my life turned around very fast. So I needed to be part of a productive and provider life, to my family. And that's one of the things that I really now appreciate. And I'm very grateful about that happened to me, because really it put me another level of consciousness. And I think to be conscious on those part of lives, and when it happens to you, things that you're not supposed to be part of it, it really shapes you as a human being. And it really gets to inside of yourself to really start to co-creating things that you really need to be part of life, and to be in a survival mode that really happens to you. And I think watching it positively in the world, it gets you to a point of view and in a point of journey that really resonates with you as a leader that can get to the next level. You go through fire, through things that happens, and that comes to you in a ways that really in the years, it really resonates with your heart, with your mind, and with your spirituality, and that gives you strength besides everything that you gone through. So I was a little child, you know, with a lot of dreams to get to. I was supposed to get to UCLA to play soccer and to be an architect. Now I'm an architect of my life. That's one of the things that I say. And to be positive on this side of the world, and part of my journey, it was like, okay, I'm really, really to start going on. So I started by selling houses, and also because I didn't go to UCLA and get my scholarship there, and because my family was in a position that it was not good economically in that moment, and also emotionally, it was not a moment to go outside of my country. My decision was to start building everything from Guatemala. So I started by selling houses and playing soccer, professional soccer. So that was my first things. And then with a little bit of capital, 2 years after, I started to be an entrepreneur. And that for me started in another way, because I started to see why I needed to do that. And it was because when I started very early, I didn't sign a contract. So for me, my first, thing that happened to me was like, because I didn't have a contract signed, because when I started to be in the professional life, I wasn't old enough. I wasn't the majority. Here in Guatemala, it's 18 years old. I know that in the United States, it's 21. And that was my first example of life to say, hey, you need to be more active. You need to be more accurate in the things that you choose or not choose. And having a contract is important in life. So imagine that.
Janma, before you continue, I'd like to take a step back for a moment.
Okay.
Because you described a childhood that was disrupted with a divorce and abandonment, and I'm wondering what would you say was what allowed you to move forward rather than for that to be a crushing blow to you? What would you say you were able to reach inside for, or what is it about Janma that allowed you to keep moving forward under difficult circumstances?
You know, Stephen, one of the things that I really appreciate the most is that since I was very early days and little, every summer, my dad and my mom, they were entrepreneurs. My grandfathers were entrepreneurs from both sides. Um, I have my grandfather was a corporate. He was a bank leader in the Bank of Guatemala, the vice president of that. And also, I always saw life as I will move forward, and to be an entrepreneur was one of the things that I really appreciate, because they build big companies and big things. But when this happens, everything it was took off with with my dad. And one of the things that I really appreciate on my life and my journey as a little child, it was discipline. I was very disciplined a girl with sports. Having in my, I had a ADHD, so my parents got me in every type of sports that I needed. That's why I get to be so good in soccer, and that's why they wanted me to take me to UCLA to be a player there. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate. You know, it's when I saw this moment of things happening to me, and negative things, and I was like, how can I see the positive in everything that is happening? And the positive is was I had a very good network of friends, because I play a lot of type of sports. It helped me to have a lot of friends. So I played golf, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played racquetball and squash, and you name it, my karate. And my mom, because they didn't want me to have like a to take some medicine, it was like, how can we get this girl to be focused and to be aligned with the things, and every that energy that she has, how we build it in the positive way. And that's why I was like in all of this type of sports that helped me reshape and restructure me on another level, but not taking medicine, and by having my energy focused to things that it really can create, you know? So I made a lot of networks, a lot of friends, and also all that network that I made in my school and everything. I was always every day having extracurricular classes of every type of sports. So that made me a girl and a leader that really started to think differently in life, you know? And that's one of the things that I appreciate the most with my parents, that they got me on all these type of things, and I got a very good network, and I could tap in when these difficult times came into my life.
Yeah, so you learned very early the importance of network and community and friendship.
Yes.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I value a lot that type of things. And with that said, that's where I started my company. My first company was events in marketing. Very fast, it scaled up. It was a company, they were selling $1,000 a month. Then after 2 years, we were selling $10 million, more than $10 million a year. So for me, when I get back and see what happened, is they really tapped on that opportunity, that I saw the things that I could really tap in, and I saw the opportunities that I could reach out and be part of. I was studying marketing, and when I started marketing in my university in Guatemala, I saw that I could do some internships in Madrid, Comillas. So we never did that before. I talked to my cousin that he was in Salvador. He was like, we do as the same part of the university, we do a internship with company with other countries. And I'm like, what? Why we are not doing this? And I went to the dean and tell him how we can do this. And he was like, if you came as a president of the association of alumni, you maybe can propose to do these projects. And I'm like, okay. So I went to be a president of the alumni of the Association of Economic faculty in Guatemala in this university, and I was like, when I went there, my first project was, let's do this internship between Guatemala and Madrid. When I went to Madrid, it was beautiful because I didn't have so much money in that moment before that my company scaled. I went to this amazing program and I felt like there was a lot of things happening in Europe, in Madrid, Spain, and there were things that were not happening in my country. And I saw the opportunity to start my company and strategy of marketing, events, and everything that was aligned with that. And so when I came back, it was like going to the agencies and tell them what was happening in these countries, because I did this internship with that big company on Madrid that they were doing a lot of projects. They were doing, for example, the marathon of Berlin. They were doing San Fermin in Madrid. They were doing a lot of things. And for me, that opened my eyes. It was like, how can I build something like that, but with the resources that I have in Guatemala? And that's how I started.
So it's interesting. I hear that you're thinking outside the box of, oh, why can't I go to Europe? Why can't I go to Madrid? How can I make that happen? So step one was you seeing beyond your world as it existed. And then when you stepped into the bigger world, let's say, you then got the advantage of what was going on in places outside of your world. So it was like an interplay between your vision to go beyond and then putting yourself into an environment that was outside that helped you see a broader picture.
Totally, Stephen. For me, it was like, how can I explore? And I always was an explorer. I didn't know that I had that in me for sure. And imagine that I really appreciate to see my grandfathers, my father, my mom to be an entrepreneur, because I saw them to look for things that they were not there, you know? So I think that I had it in my DNA somehow, in my subconscious. And I was tapping in because in a survival mode. And that's an amazing, because when you saw life so enjoyable and in your enlightenment, in that you can really, things happen to you and you can really go through that, you really go outside of your comfort zone and you start to really also to start stretching you out. I said, because you start to get out of the box and say, wow, this is another thing, another world, but we can tap on that. So there's so much possibilities on that part.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You referred to your family as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you said was, it's in my DNA.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think science is still battling what is in the DNA and what is in the environment. But we now, with epigenetics, we know that the environment influences our DNA. And so you had an environment, you had models that supported what you were doing. But if we don't have that environment, we can do something like you did by going to Madrid. You went to an environment that also added to you. So I think it's important that on the one hand, you were fortunate to have that modeling within your family. But if we don't have that, it's up to us to find the environment that we can put ourselves into so we get that opportunity for modeling that perhaps we didn't get growing up.
Yes, totally, Stephen. Fast forward on that, for me, was a lot of things that aligned for sure. I believe in God, so that's one of my spirituality. And I think that everything that I was very aligned to provide to my family, it was coming towards me, I don't know, multiplied by 10x, because I was honoring my family. I was doing things for my family. And I think that's why God and my environment and everything aligned to really kept going, give me the strength that I needed, and give me the resources that I needed to really get to the next level. So for me, for those years, and not just to build one company, to build a lot of companies more, I get to that point and say, wow, there was a lot of angels that I had in the meanwhile, my community that I tapped in, my friendships that I tapped in, the things that I were aligned, and it was amazing to do with so much, so fast, but it also was not good because I didn't know how, when you grew so fast, your companies, you're in a moment, you're not seeking also what is, it comes against you, and a lot of things. For example, things that I didn't align with my business partners and my co-founders, because there was, for example, there's the shareholders agreement that I didn't know that existed. It will be really good in that moment when I started my foundations, that I had that foundation to be very aligned on that, because everyone that it comes to the table has different perspectives in life, and that's good, but also the ethics and values changes for people when there's a lot of money in the table. So that's the ambition for everyone. And I'm not saying that I always say that one of my biggest learnings was also ambition for me, because in that moment when you're like striving, surviving, getting in the scale, you helping your family, you're getting a lot of things, you're getting richer by the minute. There's a lot of other things that happens to you that you really need also to understand as a conscious leader in the world. And that was also another thing that I really started to see between my people that I had in my side, and with the people that I was also building, and that's one of the other things that I really, really happened to me, to understand that not everyone has the same values, the same perspective, the same things that we have already had. And that's another level of consciousness that happens to you when you're on this journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a couple of things that you brought up I'd like to delve into a little bit more. You talked about your spirituality. So I would like to know from you how that played a part in your growth, in your development, in your courage to keep moving forward.
So when I was very young, I was very Catholic. I was there's a process that you confirmed that you want to be a Catholic. I did it when I was 16 years old, sorry. But then after, when my parents got divorced and everything that had happened, it is not very good, well looked, how when two parents got divorced and to be part of the church. So for me, that was my first moment that I got my I don't know, that water felt inside of me, because the church was supporting my father, that he was the one that cheated on my mother and abandoned us, and not supporting my mother, that was the one that was affected. And for me, was that the first time that I really had like a very like rejecting my spirituality, that I didn't know, because I was very young. That was not God. It was, everything is reigned by the humans. And for me, that was the first time that I had that a spare moment that I needed to like reject. After a moment of things that had started to happen, and I had an accident that I almost lose my life when I was 29 years old, because there was so many angels, I was alive. And that was, again, it was after those times that I started again my relationship with God. And because I was in intensive care, almost not moving all my left side of my body, and I had a concussion, a very hard concussion on my head. It was a moment that I started to really start to have my relationship with God. And why? Because there happened so many things in my process of my car accident that really, really, when I go back, it was angels that I had in that moment, because I was supposed to be dead. And I had, when I did, then I did 2 years after that moment of accident, I did a retrospect, it's called NLP, a neurological,
Neurolinguistic programming.
yeah, programming. Sorry, that's the name. I did that exercise, and I felt again to the moment that I had the accident, because every doctor had that I was like subconscious, like 10 minutes at least. I was like, it called them like a muerte súbita, like 10 minutes, they call it. I don't know how you say it in English, but it was like 10 minutes out of this world. And when I did this program, I was in a field, a beautiful field. I saw just blue, and I saw I felt so much peace. I remember that I felt so much peace that was impressive. And I felt that it was hand of God, that it was like, I needed to be aligned with my purpose again. I needed to be looking for things that really was aligned with things that I was creating, more things that was on my life to transform lives. So that moment, Stephen, it was an opening eye. And fast forward, after that, I have another moment when I broke one of my biggest companies of technology company, bankrupt. It was a project that we were aligning, and we were digitalizing our social security in Guatemala. That was the other moment that I felt that was very aligned with God. And I was not, because everyone, imagine this, the first year that we digitalized the social security, we got back to the government $100 million. And the project in 3 years, it will cost $50 million. And imagine the first year we got back the money that it will pay us in 3 years. And there was a lot of corruption, and there were some people that wanted us to kill us because we were doing the right thing. So that's the other moment that I see that it was God's hands that give me, and it was a lot of angels that I had that didn't get to the other level. And that's where I stepped down, and I was like, what I need to do in this moment, what I'm not doing that is very aligned. For sure, the things that are aligned with my purpose were doing this project, for example, because I went to MIT, my master program of entrepreneurship in 2015. In my first class with Simon Sinek that I had the pleasure, it was like his methodology put me in another sense to really be open to align my why. And when I aligned with my why, I was, wow, I have more than 15 companies. 2 are aligned with my why. 1 is the one that is doing the digitalization of social security. And consciously, the people I thrown in my life, and I'm happy with this. And so how I played God's and my spirituality on those type of things, I had angels. I had angels every moment that I've been aligned with this, and this has given me peace, even though it was moments that I didn't have a security on my life. Imagine.
I appreciate how that has been so supportive to you, but going back to some of these crises that you went through, whether it was your parents' divorce, whether it was the church aligning with your father, or this life-threatening accident, were there moments where you went into any kind of despair, anxiety, fears? Can you identify any times like that, and how was it the spirituality that got you through, or can you identify any other of your qualities that helped you?
Yeah, for sure. I had moments of fear, for sure. We're human, and we're like, when you're not supposed to have these problems and you are having these problems, or you're having these type of accidents or things that are happening to you, for sure you're having a fear, and one of the things, I have my grandfather and my mom like as guides of my spirituality. I told them, hey, I'm having these moments of doubt, of things that I'm doubting of myself, I'm doubting of my life, I'm doubting what I'm doing, and that's where things started to happen. And they were like, you need to hear more, than you have to pray and hear more people that are aligned with you. And one of my mentors that I love is Philip Wilson. I think you met him in Volcano. He's one of our board of advisors in Volcano, and he's very spirituality. He's very spiritual. And I called him and I talked about him, and he was like, "You need to go through a process right now that you're having all this process and origins, these questions. The best is go to study again." And I'm like, "What? Right now?" And he was like, "I think that really will help you," and it really helped me. I didn't understand in that moment that that example he was giving me, and this uh, moment of tell me this, and I'm like, okay. And then someone else told me, and someone else told me, and I'm like, okay, there's three persons that are telling me this, God, so I will be aligned with this and I will do it. So I think I always, in these moments, Stephen, I always go through my prayers. I go through read the Bible, or even though to be very aligned with me, to really to understand the people that are very aligned with the same principles as I am, to hear them and to see that I the thing that I don't know everything, that I'm always open to all hear more people, to hear about the things that they have already passed through their journey. And that's the other thing. I always very humble to hear everyone that is aligned with my ethics, with my values, with the things that I believe, and to hear them and to really appreciate those moments of truth that they give you to you, and they'll, okay, I'll be exploring this. And that's one of the things that I love, Stephen, of life. We have so many mentors in life, so many angels, so many people that we can have these conversations and be true ourselves. And that's the other thing. One of the things that I needed to be on those moments is true to myself. I feel this and be vulnerable, to really be vulnerable in those moments and say, hey, I'm passing through this. Who is the person who can help me? Who's the person that already had this moment, that can give me years and minutes? We tell in Volcano, we tell always years and minutes. How you can tell me years and minutes, and how you can help me in my journey.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really spot on. Even though you had been successful, you were willing to be humble and you were willing to be vulnerable, and realize you didn't have all the answers, and particularly in that moment. So when your mentor said you have to take more study, you listened. Could you be a little bit more specific when you took that step? When you did do more studying, how did that help you? What was the specifics there that helped you get past that crisis that you were going through?
So going to MIT, the Master Program in Entrepreneurship, there's alignment with EO and being in entrepreneur organizations for years. And that moment for me was like having different perspectives in the room. There was 65 alumni in that class from Africa, from United States, from Honduras, from Nicaragua, from Argentina, people from all over the world. And for me, with different industries, totally different industries, but everyone was an entrepreneur. So for me, it was like beautiful to see that we have the same type of problems, and most of it, that the journey that you are in those process to have this type of different perspective of professors, of one to stick with your why, to see what is your why, what is your purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aligned with that, or you're not aligned with that? What are you doing with that? The other thing was like, what are you doing with the leaders that you're becoming? You know, you as leader and the people that you have. What are you doing in human resources with your team? And then what are you doing with your finance, the cash flow? What are you expecting to do on that part? And for the different reasons, I was hearing different entrepreneurs, and I was like with like a sponge, you know, this is a moment to be a sponge, to really to see what is happening in South Africa, what is happening in Madrid, what is happening, whatever in the world. And that's where I really got into my why: transform life and transform society. And I was like, wow, but all my companies that I am right now, yeah, there's profits. I have a very good ones. Another one that is the bankruptcy, the one that I was getting into, that I was telling you, the project that I was doing to the Social Security. And then there's another ones, and I'm like, wow, every company that I have, they're aligned with my why. So starting to have that conversation with you and be aligned, because you're not in the moment of survival. Now you're in the second moment of you're really got to that moment. You passed through that moment. You're in a moment that you're creating more value in your life, in a portfolio and everything. And you're like, okay, am I doing good as a leader? I'm giving back to what I learned. I'm helping others to have another connections. That's where 4 months after my first year in MIT, I came back and I met Josie Bardi. Josie Bardi, one of the leaders in Startup Nation in Israel, ICQ founder. He sold the company for more than $400 million in the 90s. And it's amazing when you really are aligned with your why, these things started to happen to you and start to put you the angels and the people that you need to have in order to learn from them and to do things with them that really can appreciate life, you know. And that's where I was sparked with him, very inspired by him and his amazing journey leading in the world. And I'm like, how can we do something like this if the community he's been building more than 40 years, how we can, technology innovation is shaping the world. And we're not talking about that in Latin America. We're seeing it, but we're not talking it profoundly. How will this affect our society, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Volcano started to concretize and started the business ideas and ideas to start to really go to this project to held after 2 years with traveling with Josie and his whole community to get the different events that he does and the different platforms that he's part of it, to really see that we really can appreciate again community, and we can really rely connecting the world with Latin America in the center of America, that is Antigua, Guatemala.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So I'm also hearing how your personal journey, how the importance of community and interconnectedness now expands from
the network effect, you know,
the network effect, and kind of working to look at Latin America as a key area in the world, and the network moving out from Latin America thanks to your Volcano Innovative Summit. So I can see how you've taken this step by step and expanded it, which is really beautiful. Where in this process did you begin seeing yourself as a leader?
Wow, that's a good question. I think when you see yourself as a leader, I started with sports. I can tell you that it started with sports. I was a captain always of the teams. I think since very little, I started to see. I was not conscious about it because it was like a subconscious thing that you do when you're leading, and they really your coach is helping you to be a leader of those processes. But I think be chosen in life by others and be prepared by others and be having coaches in different part of your life, it helps you to be a leader. And I think everyone can be a leader, from your community, from their world, from the country, from your company, from your neighborhood. I think everyone can be a leader. And it goes into inside of you, and get outside of the box and see how your word, your life, your positiveness can give others really a path and in a journey to really tap in. And I think when you are surrounded by other leaders, it creates your leadership more, I don't know how it expands your leadership, to be more conscious about it, to be grateful about it. Because another thing that I'm very grateful about it is everything that happened to me, I'm very grateful for. I always been, the spirituality had helped me to forgive and be forgiven to others always. And I think that's one of the things that you can tap in your life and gives you peace, to be forgiven and to forgive everyone that had harmed you somehow, or had passed through a moment that harmed you or whatever, or harmed your company or whatever. I think if we really tap in to be grateful about those lessons and forgive, it gives you a lot of another type of consciousness in your life, and in there you can find leader, to be a leader.
Yeah. I like to say that in life, we either come from our heart or we come from protecting our heart. And what I'm hearing is that throughout your journey, you've come from your heart. You've come from caring. You've come from a loving perspective. You care about the other people in your network, and you have not been at all selfish about your process. It seems to always be about making sure you're bringing everybody else along with you. Is that accurate? An accurate statement?
It is an accurate statement, my friend. It gives you courage. It's not easy to be that part of it and to be vulnerable and to say, "Hey, that happened to me. I felt like this. I felt very, I because for example, when I had the moment of my bankruptcy, I didn't feel well. My country, the bankruptcy, and also to be a leader, a woman leader, is not easy in our type of countries because there's a lot of matchings. But all into that layer, put it that to when you are very high and you're successful, everyone wants to be there. But when you're not successful and you're having a bankruptcy, for example, everyone points it out you and say that you're not good enough. And when I met Josie, that was one of the things that he appreciated. He was like, "Oh, I want to ask you something." And he was like, "Have you already bankrupt a company?" And I'm like, "Yes, twice. And I'm passing my second bankruptcy, the biggest one that I've been." And he was like, "Wow, we appreciate that a lot, because we as Israelis, we appreciate that someone that had already went through a process that went down, come up again is not easy." And we appreciate that part of life, and we appreciate that person, as a leader that really has that moment of life and has that process. So it gives you these guiding principles to really to say, hey, if you really mess up already, it says it's part of your journey. It is.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry about it. It will be part of it. It will pass. You will learn about that. And if you don't learn about that, you will have another one. And it's,
Yes.
It's part of life.
Well, I love what you just said, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is how you handle mistakes. And so you're sharing about the failures and how you've come out of that and how you've handled them really says a lot about how you handle mistakes. You also made another comment about courage, and this is so important. A lot of people that I encounter talk about not having courage or not having enough courage, and thinking that, it's something that you either have or you don't have. And a moment ago, you connected courage to your network. Could you, you used your network to identify what gave you some of your courage. Could you talk about that and explain that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I most, when I had the courage to say things, the negative things about me, and to be open with people that I love, and to say, hey, this is the things that are happening to me. I'm very sad. I'm very nervous. I'm passing through this moment. I don't know what to do. And to be open to people and to have these conversations, it creates and co-creates yourself again. It's like pieces that you're starting again. And I think courage, Stephen, everyone can have courage, because you have courage when you get in the car and you get in the traffic, for example. You have courage when you go to explore another country. You have courage when you go outside in our countries, when you go outside and you walk into places that it's not so safe. You got, there's different type of courages. And one of the things is how you really appreciate yourself. By every day we have a new opportunity to live. And that new opportunity to live every day, it started with you, and the courage that you have and the decisions that you have to decide what you want. And that's when you surround yourself with people that are inspiring yourself, that can collaborate with you and really help you on different type of process that you are. I think you have courage. And the courage is just to have and talk about it. That's the first thing. That's to really enhance that you are having this process. And that's, for me, it's the first thing that I applaud, that that a person is very victorious, I said, because he's willing to do one thing or the other, but by really appreciating his life and really having that part of what this day he's living as the last day of his life. And that's one of the things that I learned when I had my car accident, because you don't know when you're gonna be the last day of your life.
Right. Again, I loved what you said, because a lot of people do really great things in their lives, but what they miss out on is taking it in, owning their successes, appreciating their successes, because I refer to that as emotional nourishment, and it's what nurtures courage. And I think you said that really very well, that every day we do things in our lives that require some level of courage, and it's important to take note of that. It's important to own each of the steps we take, even if it's, working hard just to make enough money for your family. Own that success, recognize the courage that takes, because in a growth mindset, we're looking to grow courage, not be born with courage. We're looking to recognize how much we have, own it, because that's the first step in growing it and gaining more courage. So I appreciate your response to that. Let's talk about your businesses now and being a leader now and what you believe are your qualities that make you and have made you so successful as a leader.
Wow, I think the profound things that happened to me in my life has somehow shaped my life. It's my leadership. So maybe I could bring it to a few things. First of all, my spirituality. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about my leadership. And I think I'm very honest with with God, and I always put God every day on my life, and I really am very grateful about every day that He gives me to be alive. So that's one of the things. The second one,
how does that manifest in your leadership?
wow, one of we have a formula that we call it in Volcano, and faith is one of it. We have a lot of faith on the things that we're building on, and I always tell the team that we have to have faith. What are they doing? How they're doing it, and the miracles that happens every day, because there's a lot of things that we really understand how it really happens. How really life puts me with, I don't know. For example, I met you. There was we were in a boat of more than 2,000 people. And I really connected with you in that boat. We passed each other like 2-3 times. And the third time I was like, I went to talk to you. I didn't know that you were Dr. Stephen Sideroff, but my soul in my life, and somehow I was attracted by your energy and your aura, something like that. And when I talked to you, wow, there was so much peace in you and your life and the things that you were doing, and you were telling me about what you were doing, and it was so inspiring that I really connected with you. So for me, I don't want to, if I had the time, I meet 2,000 people. You don't have the time to meet 2,000 people, but you will have the time to meet 3, 4, or 5 people, most of it. And they really can shape your life. And that's where we are right now, having this conversation afterwards. That was almost a year ago. And those miracles happens when you're open and when you have faith and when you're really appreciating life in another perspective. That's why, as a leader, I put it always to my colleagues and to the team. Say, you will find the right people, to the right speakers, for example, or the right partners align with what we're doing. If we are open to hear, if we're open to meet people, and if we're open to really understand and to have those conversations that will help you to nurture that. So that's a little bit how I do it in my team.
Exactly the way you described that fits so nicely into the concept of quantum leadership, because it's taking its cues from some of the quantum effects that we find on the microscopic atomic level, such as entanglement, where things very, very far apart can simultaneously do similar kinds of things. Superposition, where you could be in more than one place at a time. And then the observer effect, where the observer is affecting what's being observed. And all of these come together in some of the things that you're talking about with network. It's your definition of spirituality, of connectedness, of things happening, synchronicity. So it sounds to me like a lot of the aspects of you being a leader really fall into this notion of quantum leadership?
To be present. The other thing that I love is to be present. Yeah, I'm having this conversation with you, I've been here. So if I met someone else or whatever where I'm doing it, is to be present. The other thing that I really appreciate to my teams, that presence. And that presence is living the most of it of each day, as I was saying. If you're this day here alive, make the most of it and really appreciate what you have, your family, your friends, your partners, your team, and move that and really show that you're putting that respect on those type of conversations. And the other thing is our values. I really appreciate the communications, to be communicative. So everything that you have or you don't have or whatever you're feeling, really try to bring it to the table, because it's the best that you can do is get it out from inside to outside. The other thing is to have integrity, harmony, and transparency about it, and be a teamwork. You being a team player in the world, you can make a better world, and
Yes.
that consciousness, it gives you to be. And the other one is to be grateful. The gratefulness, I do since a few years ago, since my bankruptcy, I learned also from a friend of mine. I always do my gratitude journal every day. 3 things that you're grateful about it. And by writing it down or doing it in an app, I do it in a 5-minute journal app. I appreciate a lot, and I put photos and things, and I go behind my few years and whatever, and I read it. You are very grateful to have life. You're grateful for having a shelter, to have a family member that is already here or was here and you learned about him a lot, or a friend or whatever. There's a lot of things to be grateful about it. And that's one of the things that we lost in the world. And as I was saying to you before we started, I saw this documentary that it really knocked me on a lot of things, because we're in a moment that everyone is appreciating a lot of the materials. And when we go, whatever you believe in, I believe in God, and I believe that I will go to heaven, you won't take anything with you. So why to accumulate a lot of things? And when there's a lot of people that needs a lot of things, and we're not being aligned with the world, because there's more sales. Yeah, you need to produce more. So there's more producing plastic or whatever that you're buying off. And there's a lot of things that we're right now, in a sense that we're getting to the moment we want to buy more. There's everything that it has to be more faster. Everything has to be now. There's a lot of things that we need to appreciate of life. And we have so many things of natural resources of the world, but we're not being aligned with what we're seeing, saying, doing. And that's one of my concerns of life. And so how to start to really appreciate life? Being grateful about what we have today and what we don't have. So that's part of life,
Yeah. I think you personify in so many of the things you're saying the ethos of good leadership. And so I appreciate all that you've been saying. It's been a really wonderful conversation, Janma. We have maybe a couple minutes left. Is there something that we didn't touch on that you would like to add to this conversation?
No, I just want to add that our why in Volcano is transform lives in society through collaboration and inspiration. So every day we can be an inspiration for another person. We can collaborate with another person. And we really can co-create a community in the world that really can shape a better future and a better present. And by doing that, we really can appreciate life in so many ways. So thank you, Stephen, for your time, for your different questions and conversation that we had today. It's beautiful that we encounter again. And I really, really appreciate your life and what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janma. If people want to learn more about what you're doing or connect to what you're doing, can you give any website?
We can do LinkedIn, Janma Bardi Aparicio. I'm there, very available. Everyone that can DM me for sure. And also Volcano Summit. That's the things that we're doing it, or Volcano Capital, volcano-capital.com. And more than open. Here, it's life that we are collaborating and inspiring others, and love to be part of your community also, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Janma. All of those links and names will be in the show note for everybody to find. So again, my pleasure, and thank you so much for being part of Quantum Leadership Podcast.
Gracias.
Thank you, everybody, for joining me on this Quantum Leadership Podcast. I hope today's conversation has inspired you to think bigger, lead more authentically, and take steps toward meaningful change. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with others and make sure you subscribe and go to my website, drstephensideroff.com. Thank you again.